So we'll put that on video. Matt, how many times are you gonna watch that video?
I'll definitely the question.
Yeah, it all right. I was talking to this consultant the other day. He did me a favor. He just gave me a bunch of information I was looking for, and I was like, thank you so much, man. This is huge. And he goes, hey, advice is free, right? What you do with it, that's a different story. You guys are coming here. It's a free training from people that are making money. That part is free. Let's see what people do with it. So I got to move quick here. I want to end the meeting in time for Bao to come out. But I had a conversation with a client, and they got referred to me because they got a life insurance death benefit. It wasn't a huge death benefit. It was $150,000, maybe $180,000. And so they were referred to me, and I said, okay, what are we going to do with this $180,000? And they said, now this is a 45-year-old and a 47-year-old. These are not kids. I said, what are you going to do with the money? They said, well, we have $80,000 worth of credit card debt that we have to pay off. And then we are going to do the smart thing and listen to our friend who told us about you. And we're going to invest $100,000. I was like, cool, I'll take the 100, right? Now, when I sat down with them, instead of just doing that, I did the whole financial plan, and they have no life insurance. Now, they just came into $100,000 that they didn't have. Now they have no debt, and they have an extra $2,000 a month of disposable income. So they were like, we have really low expenses. We're not really dependent on each other's income. And now we have $100,000 where if something happens, the other person will get $100,000. And so we don't really see a huge need for life insurance. So I said, let's do this. Let's first see if you can get approved. Because I don't want to get into arguing about why we need something, not arguing, but debating on why we need something, don't need something. But I don't even know if you guys are going to get approved. Because he was a smoker and then she had some things in her background. So we put in two CODs and then they got approved. So now I got to close, right? So I called him and I said, what do you guys want to do? And he's like, man, with our savings and no debt and disposable income and our low living expenses, I just don't see a huge need for us right now. And I want you to hear the conversation that I had with him. I said, look, as an advisor, my job is to help you guys plan for 10, 20 years out. Can you agree that 10, 20 years from now, a lot can happen? I'm sure you didn't anticipate 20 years ago that you would have 80,000 in debt. And let me ask you something. Could your mother have said, why am I carrying life insurance? My kids are in their 40s. Why am I paying for this? They don't need it. I don't need anyone to protect, but it made a change in your life, didn't it? You unexpectedly got that policy, got that payout, and it paid off your credit card debt. And you went from not having enough money every month to now having 2,000 extra, and you got 100 grand in savings. That was nice of her, wasn't it? See, my job is to help you plan for the unknown. You telling me you don't need something right now, it's the known. The known is you have 100 grand savings and you have a little bit of disposable income. What about the unknown? For my dad who has dementia, we spend $4,000 or $5,000 a month for the nurse to come. What if you get sick and it bleeds down your assets? What if this 100 grand is gone in 10, 15 years? Now are you going to think 10, 15 years back and say, man, I wish I had gotten something? That's what I'm here to talk to you about today. I've had 2 death claims this week. The conversation I'm having with you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is 19 years of paying out death claims to old people, to young people, to sick people, to healthy people. Expected, unexpected. So when I tell you we don't know what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years, man, I think that's something that you got to take into consideration. And always remember, you have $2,000 a month extra. This is $250 a month. This is only 10% of your disposable income. This is something you always, Tony, got to remind your clients. It's always easy in insurance to buy high and then we can go down at any point. But it's difficult to buy low and then later on say, hey, now I want more. Because when do they usually want more? When they can't freaking get it.
Right.
So, so conversation I want to have before I get into my training today. I like teaching about products. I feel like I'm a product guru. I just said 19 years, right? I can say that. I've never done anything else. This is all that I've done. But when I walk around Northern Virginia and the thousands of people that have attended our meetings, that recognize me, that walk up to me, that thank me, that I don't even know, but one day they sat in a meeting and they heard something, or maybe they came for a week or two, right? What do we say? They came for a season, but not a reason. But they learned something. They've never said, hey man, will you taught me about insurance? I never forgot that. No, it's the other stuff. It's the mindset. That's where I provide value, right? So when I come up, the job she did on training the presentation, she is better than me at that. My strength is the mindset and it's the leadership. That's what I want to teach you guys. But just, a couple things, man. When you have to understand as an entrepreneur, and in this business, we are pursuing something greater. Anybody can get a job. And if you live in Northern Virginia, you can, like you just moved to Northern Virginia, if you stay here long enough, you can get a job that pays you 100 grand. We are pursuing something greater. And in the pursuit of something great, you cannot spend time with average people doing average and ordinary things. I know what people are supposed to do on the weekends. I know what they're supposed to do on Friday and Saturday night. I know the typical habits that average people have, but for a period in your life, man, you have to make a conscious decision to make connections with people and relationships with people that are going where there's going to be a mutual benefit. It's not enough for you to, I'm not going to choose friends because you're a funny guy. Or even that you're really nice. Or even that I've known you for a long time. Yeah. Or because we grew up together. And I know this sounds mean, right? But for a period in my life, I gotta focus on people that are gonna help me get to where I wanna go. And hopefully they'll get something out of me as well, which I think I have a lot to offer in any type of relationship. But this whole thing of like people being attached to people that are around them and those people are bringing you down and they don't understand what you're doing. It's like every business owner goes through this, but it's not just business, right? Imagine if your son said, I'm gonna be a neurologist. You think there'd be probably months at a time where you don't see him? No one in your family would be like, oh man, Calvin's never here. Yeah, he's studying to be a neurologist. He had to go to a top school. He's always studying. Then he's gonna have to go through rotations and residency where he works a lot being underpaid until he makes the big money. No one's gonna question that. And by the way, they don't even start making money until they're 40. From 18 to 40, because that person is pursuing something great. You can't pursue something great and want that outcome and then want to be with everybody else doing what everybody else is doing. When I started Primerica, I was 22. I was still in college. I was in college for 4 years, part-time, still in Primerica. And I'll never forget, I had this stupid little group presentation with my classmates. And they were like, yeah, let's do it on The Office. And I go, what's that? They're like, the show. Never heard of it. I had a blackout period. I didn't know what songs, I didn't know the sports, I didn't know the shows. But a few years later, right, I run my own business. They're in a cubicle. Where did these types of, like, why do I say things like that? It kind of rubs people the wrong way, right? Oh, why are you saying that? But I don't mean to put people down. It's just when you build a business and so many people are against you and so many people don't believe in you and so many people try to put you down and so many people say it's not going to work, you kind of develop that, right? That's why I don't like a lot of realtors. Because I've heard it from them all my life growing up. So it's like, I'm not like a flexor. That's a word that you guys, right? I don't flex, but there's certain people in my life because of what I've been through. Sometimes I do feel like talking like that and doing things like that. Right? So let's go through this. Leadership. Have you ever imagined, what's your name? Ibrahim? Have you ever thought to yourself, who's been to, you look like it's your first time here, right? To a meeting? Second time, right? Who's been here 5, 10 times to a meeting? Do you ever think to yourself, man, what if I was Samir or Shaq and I had to start the meeting, I had to run the meeting, a 45-minute meeting, hour and a half meeting, what would I talk about? You got to ask yourself that. You're not just in my meeting one day on you are going to have your own meeting. You got to start thinking like that now. When would you get here? How would you dress? What would you talk about? How would you open the meeting? What would the content be? That's how leaders think, right? I've met salespeople who make a lot of money, Mateo. They're not leaders. They're just good enough to get the client to buy something. They're very good at what they do, but that doesn't mean that they got 100 people around them following them. That's what we teach here in Primerica. Let's talk about this. There are 5 levels of leadership. Number 1, position. Number 2, permission. Number 3, production. Number 4, people development. Number 5, the pinnacle. This is all what? Based on a book from John Maxwell. Read it. 5 levels of leadership. When he brings the book back, I'm going to read a couple things from it. Number 1, position. You just got a job, right? Who'd you talk to get that job? Who interviewed you? Manager, that's a position. Project manager. I don't even know corporate anymore. What other positions? HR. What are some positions? Who do you guys work for? Tell me.
GM.
Supervisor. Mid-level man, I don't know, right?
Manager.
Huh?
Project manager.
Project manager. These are positions. The position, the person that you work for that has a position, or if you're in management, what the book says, don't get mad at me, what the book says is that this is the lowest level of leadership. The only influence a positional leader has is that which comes with their title. So if you report to the project manager, you're only going to respond to them within the capacity that their title, right, obligates you. People follow because they have to. Positional leadership is based on the rights, which I just said, granted by the position and title. Position is a poor substitute for influence. What you want to build is influence, right? But you don't have influence when you just have a title. People who make it only to level 1, which is position, may be bosses, but they are never leaders. That's the mistake people make. They come into Primerica, like if I interview a sharp person, they're like, oh yeah, I get the ladder, but like, how do I just get to RVP? No, this isn't a job. We're not going to appoint you RVP. Imagine if I'm saying all these things to you guys and you know damn well I never recruited no one, never sold anything. I'm giving you this talk today. They have subordinates, not team members. They rely on rules, regulations, policies, organizational charts to control their people. That's how it works at a job. Their people only follow them within the stated boundaries of their authority, and their people will usually do only what is required of them. When positional leaders ask for extra effort or time, they rarely get it. because you're not part of a team. It's just a freaking job. Don't call me outside of 9 to 5. Don't call me weekends. This is my job, and I report to you. This is how people think that work for positional leaders. Position of leaders usually have difficulty working with volunteers, younger people, and highly educated. Why? Because positional leaders have no influence, and these types of people tend to be more independent. So if you come into Primerica, you act like a manager and you think people have to listen to you, they're not going to. Position is the only level that does not require ability and effort to achieve. Anyone can be appointed to a position. So if he goes and he works in a restaurant and he's getting interviewed by the manager, guess what? Maybe the manager's dad owns a restaurant and then put him in that position. We don't know if that person is really an achiever. So there's that respect level just isn't there. Xander was telling me he's interviewing, right? He's a young kid, 18, getting a job as a food runner, right? At Jackson's in Reston Town Center. So he's like, yeah, the manager said, if we call you by 6, you got the job. If we don't call you by 6, you didn't get the job. So dumb, right? Just tell me if he freaking has a job. Right? Then they call him by 6 and they say, hey, come in tomorrow for possible onboarding. Why the hell am I coming for am I getting freaking hired or not? This is the stuff that they do, man. At the lowest level, but it's happening to you guys at your jobs too. I know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff in here. I don't know if I'm going to have time to get through everything, but people who rely on position for their leadership almost always place a very high value on holding on to their position, often above everything else that they do. Your boss just wants to keep that job, right? Their position is more important to them than the work they do, the value they add to their subordinates, or the contribution to the organization. This kind of attitude does nothing to promote good relationships with people. In fact, positional leaders often see subordinates as an annoyance, as interchangeable cogs in the organizational machine, or even as some troublesome obstacles to their goal of getting a promotion to their next position. Positional leaders feed on politics. When leaders value position over the ability to influence others, the environment of the organization usually becomes very political. There's a lot of maneuvering. Political leaders focus on control instead of contribution. They work to gain titles. They do what they can to get the largest staff and the biggest budget, not for the sake of the organization, blah, blah, blah. Positional leaders place rights over responsibilities. Half of the harm that is done in this world is due to people who want to feel important. They don't mean to do harm. They are absorbed in the endless struggle to think well of themselves. That's what positional leaders do. They do things to make themselves look and feel important. That's corporate America. Inevitably, positional leaders who rely on their rights develop a sense of entitlement. They expect their people to serve them rather than looking for ways to serve their people. Their job description is more important to them than job development. They value territory over teamwork, right? As a result, they usually emphasize rules and regulations that are to their advantage, and they ignore relationships. King of the Hill leaders create a negative work environment because they are insecure and easily threatened. Whenever they see people with potential starting to climb, it worries them. I already counted. Right? 47. So because, see, these bosses, because they are insecure and easily threatened, right? Whenever they see people with potential starting to climb, it worries them. They fear that their place on top is being threatened. As a result, they undermine the people who show talent, trying to guard their position and keep themselves clearly above and ahead of anyone else. What is the usual result? The best people feeling undermined and put down leave the department or organization and look for another hill to climb. Only average or unmotivated people stay. That's what we're looking for. That's why we do these meetings. That's why we have something called an opportunity meeting. That's why Shaq talks about the different ways to make money and all the things wrong with being an employee and how you can run a business and you can be your own boss and you can be a leader and you can have freedom and you can call the shots and you can be self-employed and you can choose your own schedule. Because we know people that are trapped under bad bosses, right? And bad people, and they want to get out of that situation. No one's ever going to pay you what you're worth except for you. Remember that. Is Kaiser ever going to pay you 25 grand a month as a nurse?
No.
But she left that 6-figure job and now she's getting paid what she's worth. And guess what? As you keep growing, you'll be worth even more. It's just a start. All right, guys. So the meeting is going to end soon. Hopefully we got something out of that. Make sure that we set appointments. Month end is on Monday. So we have a few more days to really hit it and get the next month started. Team on 3. 1, 2, 3.